Most state employees have gone 7 years without a pay raise. For several months, they've been told that any salary increase would have to wait until completion of a compensation study. That study is now complete, but state officials are warning agencies that pay raises may not be possible due to projected revenue shortfalls in the upcoming fiscal year. Yet that hasn't prevented some agency heads and select state workers from receiving significant boosts in pay, while most state workers are being told to keep waiting.
Salary matters, and we need to start dispelling the myth that, quote, our benefits are so good that we don't need to be competitive on salary.
Results of a study released December 6th into state employee compensation mirror what a legislative panel heard last month. The study by human resources consultant Neville Kinning concludes that state workers are paid far less than their counterparts in other states and the private sector, while health and retirement benefits are higher.
But your total compensation is behind the market for almost all employees because your salaries lag on average by greater than 20%. So even though benefits in its own right appear to be attractive, the lag in salaries, and it does not make up for that gap.
The report recommends the legislature appropriate more than $41 million for salary increases of 2 to 3% in a performance-based pay system while reducing state employee benefits.
But the start has to be of these two components. We need to increase pay and potentially we need to manage back benefits. The start cannot be we need to manage back benefits. We've got to start with we need to increase pay.
The Office of Management and Enterprise Services paid for the study. OMES Director Preston Dorflinger says the report provides a blueprint for changing the mix of salaries and benefits.
There are certainly places where employees, even just from a pure salary standpoint, are not being compensated appropriately, and we recognize that. The study certainly recognized that as well. But we're trying to view this as an opportunity to reform how we approach compensation holistically.
Dorflinger's approach would pay for salary increases by reducing funding for benefits. Sterling Zerle is executive director of the Oklahoma Public Employees Association. Zerle says the study confirms that employees are underpaid and insists raising salaries should be the legislature's priority.
You have to address the salary and the overall compensation to bring that up to where the market is in the state of Oklahoma. So it doesn't matter what you adjust, what you do, if you don't put infusing money on the salary side of it, you're still in the same position you're in when you started.
But Dorflinger warns a weakening Oklahoma economy could complicate matters. Dorflinger says collections to the state's general revenue fund are running about 6.5% below the official estimate, making pay hikes unlikely.
If the revenues aren't there, it means they're not there for compensation. It means they're not there for other areas of government. It's just a fact. If they're not there, they're not there.
Even without salary increases, Dorflinger says benefit cuts can't be ruled out. Among the study's recommendations are eliminating longevity pay for state workers, reducing the number of allowed sick days per year, and changing the state's pension system from a defined benefit plan to a 401k-style retirement plan.
All of these items will be part of the conversation this session, there's no question, and I don't think you can take them in a vacuum. I do think you have to take into consideration our pension system and various thoughts that people have on different ways to approach that, whether it be going to a defined contribution for new employees. There are several ways that people are talking about approaching.
When the salaries are low, like they are, it doesn't matter what type of a pension system you have. When you leave state service, your pension is still low. So that's the reason I keep talking about you have to address the salary before you can address the pension issue, because it doesn't matter what pension system you have, that pension is going to be low.
That's because the size of state pensions is determined by employees' salary. Lower salaries mean lower pensions. Zerle also opposes changes to longevity pay.
The longevity is our only pay mechanism that's been consistent. Even though it's low, it's been consistent for state employees. You know, it goes up $100 every year. So we do not want to have that discussion about longevity until we see some movement on compensation salary first.
More than 50 state employees have already seen movement in their salaries, upward. Last July, House Speaker T.W. Shannon granted pay increases ranging from nearly 2% to more than 33% to 52 legislative staff members at a cost of about $280,000. Shannon has been unavailable for comment, But his spokesman told us in an email that raises were necessary to keep House employees from leaving and moving to other state agencies. Since 2005, we've lost 30 from our professional staff alone, and all but 7 were to other agencies. Many of these employees also had skills that were specific to the House. State Representative Jason Murphy says the raises resulted from an internal study of House staff salaries.
What the study found was that compared to their comparable individuals in the Senate, House staffers were potentially receiving less in compensation. And for the 45% of House staffers that received a compensation increase, the goal was likely to ensure that they were probably on a more equal footing with their Senate counterparts.
Murphy understands the salary increases may upset state employees who haven't seen a raise in 7 years, but argues the pay hikes are an experiment and could serve as a model for creating a performance-based pay system.
The idea was that this could potentially serve as a laboratory, an experiment, a pilot program for state employee compensation as a whole. As lawmakers experience firsthand the value of key performance indicators that could lead to compensation increases within the House of Representatives, they can see the value of applying that to the state as a whole.
State Representative Leslie Osborne, who requested last month's interim study on employee compensation, has pre-filed legislation adopting some of the study's recommendations, including provisions to eliminate longevity pay.
Well, they're still on the table, but it would be phased in, and that's what I absolutely will not run legislation that takes away or stops increasing longevity pay off of what your base would be if there are not commensurate salary raises.
Osborne says her bill would provide targeted increases for some of the state's lowest paid employees, such as correctional officers and DHS caseworkers.
What we'd like to do is about a 4 or 5 year phase in. The first year, pick the jobs that are the lowest hanging fruit, the ones that were the worst compensated with the market.
Osborne says the legislation is included in a shell bill, giving lawmakers flexibility to change its provisions as the state revenue picture becomes more clear.